the Wi-Fi to work and the Zoom to enter.
Nachon. Erev Tov l'kulam. It's nice to see you all, and I want to encourage everybody, feel free to open up your screens as long as you're not wearing pajamas, and join us. It's always special to see smiling faces, and it's a great honor and privilege to welcome my dear friend and colleague, Rabbi Elie Abadie, Rabbi Dr. Elie Abadie, to join us for this very exciting interview at 10:30 at night in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi. We're going to learn more about exactly where you are. And so this is very exciting. So let's all give a hello and a welcome to Rabbi Abadie. And so a few words of introduction. Rabbi, this is very exciting to have you on the line here because, just a few years ago, you were on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. I was on the Upper West Side. You were at Safra Synagogue. I was at West Side Sephardic Synagogue. And we used to even have a joint event between all the Sephardi Batei Knesset in Manhattan. We did Slichot together on one night of the Yamim Noraim. And lo and behold, we both moved to the East. I've moved to Israel, and you've moved even further east. So who would have guessed that we would be finding ourselves on Zoom, but representing our different communities here together, and this is very special and very special to have you here. And I want to tell you that we have a number of people, even on this group here, from our community here at Kehillat Shivtei Yisrael, who are planning on traveling to Dubai, to the Emirates for Chanukah in just a few weeks. So this will be an opportunity for them to meet you and to see you, and they can say hello, and Bezrat Hashem, they'll see you in the Beit Knesset.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in. And the way I want to do this, Rabbi Abadie is going to share a short Dvar Torah, and then I'm going to interview with some questions, and then we'll open it up to the floor. I do just want to welcome two people. Rabbi, I want to introduce you to Andy Album, who's the chairman of our Beit Knesset. He'll be in the Emirates in just a few days. Okay, and also I see Rav Baruch Garson. Shalom Kvod Harav. It's very special to have you here. Rabbi Garson is the rabbi of the Spanish Sephardi community here in Ra'anana. So Rav Garson, always special to see you. Wish you good life and arichut yamim.
Shalom, Benito. Shalom.
Okay, so Rabbi Abadie, can you please tell us where did you grow up? Tell us about your history a little bit.
Where I grew up and where I was born, they're two different places. I was born actually in Beirut, Lebanon. Mm-hmm. And at the age of 10, my family left, of course, and I left with them to Mexico City, where my father had three sisters there since the World War II. And we had also, my oldest brother has been there from 1965, went there for the New World, went to our cousins and established himself there, got married. And so Mexico basically was the next horizon from Lebanon. As we saw that Lebanon was reaching a boiling point that would cause the civil war, which it did just a few years after we left, we recognized that the Jewish life in Lebanon was coming to an end sooner or later, more sooner than later, and therefore we decided to leave Lebanon, as many of the Lebanese Jews had decided to leave in the early 70s. Of this past century. So, and that's where the Jewish community was, and many made Aliyah, others went to New York, others went to Panama, Brazil, Mexico, France. My family happened to have gone to Mexico, and that's where I grew. After age 10, that's when I left Lebanon. Went to Mexico. I grew up in Mexico, and then after finishing yeshiva high school in Mexico, I decided to come to New York to study at yeshiva, and the rest is history, so to speak.
Uh-huh. And you grew up speaking what language?
I grew up speaking Arabic and French, mm-hmm. and of course Hebrew when we learned in school.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
And any other languages that you've picked up since?
Yeah, I picked up Spanish in mm-hmm. Mexico. And I picked up English in the United States, and I picked up the Abyssal Yiddish in the yeshiva.
Okay, so 6 languages.
And knowing French and Spanish, then the other Romance languages like Italian and Portuguese are easier to pick up. I understand those. I'm slightly conversant in Italian, Portuguese, but of course not like Spanish and French.
And what about Persian? I mean, you're going to be neighbors with Iran. Any Persian?
Yeah, Hale Chatore, Khub Khubam, the very good thing you could tell to the Persians is Chodafez, which means God be with you, leave us alone across the Hormuz Strait, and that's good enough.
Okay, good. So we're gonna talk about a little bit what it's gonna be like being neighbors with Iran in just a little bit. So you speak many languages, and then you pursued the rabbinate at Yeshiva University, but you also pursued another career as well at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit what else you do in your free time?
As a communal leader, a lot of things to be done. But let me tell you that my original desire, my vocation, if I will, was really medicine, not the rabbinate. I come from a rabbinical family dating back to Spain, then Provence, then Thessaloniki, and then Turkey, and Aleppo, Syria, and then Lebanon, of course. So my father was a rabbi, his grandfather was a rabbi, his great uncle was a rabbi, and going back, like I said, many centuries. So the rabbinate was more, if I was going to pursue the rabbinate, it was more, to study, to learn, to have the degree, and to give lectures here and there, not to really be a pulpit rabbi. My vocation was really medicine. I wanted to do medicine. Now in Mexico, if you wanted to become a doctor, you had to study on Shabbat, do lab on Shabbat, take the tests on Shabbat. I was accepted to the two most prestigious universities in Mexico City, but those were the conditions, and I was not willing to compromise my faith. And so that's when I heard about Yeshiva University, a yeshiva and a university where a person can pursue their career and yet at the same time, keep Shabbat, be in a Jewish environment, kashrut, like live like a proud Jew. And that's what really brought me to New York. Little did I know, and this is not an anecdote, this is a true story. Little did I know that I have to do 4 years of college before medical school, where anywhere in the world, there's no such thing except in the United States. Anywhere in the world, you finish high school, you go to whatever university and faculty you're going, if it's medicine, it's medicine, it's law, it's law. Only in the United States, you have 4 years of college. So little did I know that I did that, but once I got into New York, it kind of absorbed me, swallowed me, and I did college, and then I did medicine. Then even before that, if I may, once I finished college, they told me, you're not an American citizen. You cannot go to medical school. We are sending our own students to Guadalajara and in Mexico. And are we going to take a Mexican into an American university? You have to be a citizen first. And so I had to wait to become a citizen because I was with a student visa. So in the meantime, I got married, and that was a good excuse. So I became a citizen. So while I became a citizen, I went to the seminary, to the rabbinical school, and I became a rabbi. In the meantime, I became a citizen. And so that's where, and then even during my first year of smicha studies, I was offered a position of a convent.
So Rabbi, if I understand correctly, so you married your wife and you did smicha at YU so that you could become an American citizen, is that right?
And that's not the reason, but that was a good outcome. That was the good outcome.
It was a good outcome.
That was a good outcome, exactly. That was a reward that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me, right? To get married and to become a U.S. citizen.
Beautiful. Okay, so medical school, a number of languages. And so if I understand correct, and then you moved on to be rabbi of Batei Knesset in Brooklyn and in Manhattan at the Safra Synagogue. So if I understand correctly, you're not going back to you're not in the Middle East for the first time. You are returning to the Middle East. You're returning to the Mizrach HaTichon where you grew up, right?
Correct. So yeah, that was the whole, if you will, I wouldn't call it marketing, but the whole PR was basically I'm returning, so to speak, home to the region, to the language, to the culture I grew up in, and that what made it a little bit more interesting, more meaningful, becoming the
So
rabbi.
how did you? I mean, how did you? You tell us a little bit about your position, and tell us you've been there now for 2 weeks, from what I understand. How did you receive this position? What is it like to be there? Tell us a little bit about your current life right now. Is it Abu Dhabi, Dubai? Tell us.
Right. So I have been here a few times before. I was invited 2 years ago to come to visit the nascent community. And I came and I celebrated Purim with the community. And then I kept in touch with them. And I started making connections with the people here, with the important people here in the government. I came a second time to dedicate a Sefer Torah to the community, a Sephardic Sefer Torah, actually, that was purposely and intentionally done that way by a fellow by the name Elie, a very, very good friend of mine and a big businessman who has been here for many years, who lived in the Upper East Side, and we became very dear friends. So he invited me to bring a Sephardic Sefer Torah to the community. And as I said, we met with officials of the government, and I kind of created connection and made friends. And since then, the community has been kind of consulting me in certain issues. And then they named Rabbi Yehuda Sarna as chief rabbi almost 2 years ago, also almost at the same time that we came. I came together with him also. So I have been helping them
back and forth.
Back and forth, yes. And then finally, 2 months ago, like it was announced October 16, just a week before, I was asked, Rabbi Abadie, why don't you just come and be the senior rabbi here? Rabbi Sarna was not coming. He was basically in the United States. He comes back and forth, but they needed a resident
rabbi on the ground
who's going to lead the community and develop it, and with all the necessary accoutrement, so to speak. Wow. And I thought about it for a few days. I said, I like challenge. Like I said, it's kind of coming back home to the same culture, the same language, the same traditions, and I love to establish communities. As you know, I established this community in Manhattan practically out of zero. And thank God, there's a school, there's a community center, there's a very successful synagogue. So I saw that as a challenge that I could tackle. It was interesting, it was meaningful, and I accepted.
Well, but is this a Sephardi community? I mean, who are the people who make up this community in the Emirates? Businessmen, like who actually lives there?
Right. So it's a mixed community. You have what they call them here expats. And practically the entire country is made out of expats. 80% of the population are expats and 20% are local Emirati people. And those expats are the ones that they really turn the machine of productivity work in this entire country. These expats make up from CEOs of major companies to taxi drivers, to waiters and waitresses, to store owners, to from A to Z, from blue collar to white collar, to very important positions. Of course, the Emirati have businesses themselves, investment corporations, and all government offices are run by them. So the Jewish community kind of reflects the expats population. Of course, many of the expats here, they come from 193 countries that make up the United Nations. From Argentina to Zimbabwe, A to Z, and everything in between.
Wow. So your language capability really comes into play in a place like.
Correct. Yeah, correct. So the Jewish community you have from South America, from the United States, from Europe, from Israel, from South Africa, the United Kingdom. So also the Jewish community is varied. So you have Sephardim and you have Ashkenazim in the same community. They're not enough to maintain a solid, different congregations. So for now, they are meeting in the same place. So it depends who's going to be the Hazan, who's going to be the Baal Tfilah. It could be an Ashkenazi, it could be a Sephardi, or even if it's an Ashkenazi that day, they intercalate some melodies, Sephardic melodies, or vice versa. If it's a Sephardic Hazan, then they intercalate some Ashkenazi melodies. So that way,
Achdut, beautiful, beautiful.
A real Achdut, real Achdut indeed.
Wow, yeah. And have you met the prince yet of the Prince of the Emirates?
Yes, of course I have met him. I met him actually last year, and we established a good rapport. Of course, we spoke in Arabic. We reminisced about our childhood in Lebanon, because he used to summer in Lebanon. Lebanon, as you know, used to be known as the Switzerland of the Middle East, and Beirut was the Paris of the Middle East. So Lebanon was the Europe of the Middle East, in a sense, where all VIP Arab leaders came to summer there. Kuwait, Iraq, Bahrain, the Emirates, Saudi Arabia, they all came to Lebanon to summer. Many of them still have homes in Lebanon. And so the prince was reminiscing with me about visiting mountains known as Hamdoun, and where we used to go. We're pretty much almost the same age, so we were reminiscing of those childhood moments.
Wow. Okay, and tell me, what are some of the halachot as a rabbi? What are some of the halachot that you encounter that might be different living in a Muslim country versus a Christian or Western country? Maybe, for example, what about when people ask you, can they go visit the mosques in Abu Dhabi? What do you tell them?
Yeah, well, of course, as you know, Harambam already passed posek la halacha that not only you could visit a mosque, but you could pray in a mosque if necessary.
So if you don't get a minyan in the synagogue, you get the
Yeah, that's right. He get it in the mosque. In fact, he himself prayed in the mosque as he was escaping from the Almohads. So we could visit mosques. We have a very, very keen understanding of monotheism between the Islamic leaders and us.
One second. I'm just gonna ask everybody, please mute yourself. I'm going to mute everybody. Okay, and please mute yourself, and then okay. So Nachon, so the Rambam says that a Jew can enter a mosque, right? Chacham Ovadia also, Rabbi Yosef also rules as such, and where he's going into a church is more problematic because of issues maybe that it's avodah zarah or idolatry. Any other issues that come up specifically in a Muslim context?
Well, they understand very well the issue of washing hands before eating, washing hands before praying. They wash hands. They wash even their feet before praying. So they understand the concept of tum'ah and tahara, where Christendom would not understand that. They understand the concept of mikveh also, and the need to use not just by women, they use it by men themselves. They understand the concept of kashrut, of what they call it as halal, we call it kasher. They understand the concept of shehita, and so on and so forth. They understand, of course, the concept of not eating hazir, not eating pork, though they do not know why. The Quran does not mention the reason why not to eat hazir, but the Quran says stay away from eating pork. So so they stay away. Interestingly enough, the Shiite Muslims, the UAE is a Sunni country, but Shiite Muslims also have the prohibition of eating seafood. So they only eat fish that has fins and scales. Where Sunni Muslims, they don't have that prohibition. So there is a lot of commonality and an understanding of our halakha, and they understand it very well. There's also another concept that they understand very well, and that is religious autonomy. Religious autonomy means that each community of faith, have the right to adjudicate their halacha, their law, according to their holy books. And in this case, as a Jew, they know that we can adjudicate our halacha based on the Shulchan Aruch, and they give us that autonomy completely, to the point of really asking us to establish our own beit din, so we could deal with issues of personal status, marriages, divorces, question of inheritance, question of adoptions, question of business disputes. If we want to adjudicate those, they would allow us to do so. And so even questions of adultery, I requested to deal with it, because we don't want to be reliant on Sharia law when it comes to that.
So wait, what does that mean? That if someone commits adultery, that the Jewish community deals with that instead of the Muslim authorities? Like, what is that?
If a Jew or a Jewess commit adultery, then yes, it would be the beit din, the Jewish beit din, dealing with that, and not the local.
And what if it's a Jew, a chas v'shalom? It shouldn't happen. A Jew committing adultery with a Muslim. What would happen then?
Right. Well, that probably will have to do. They have to decide where to go to.
So that's undetermined. So I'm just going to say to my congregants, everyone should go to Abu Dhabi, have a great time over Hanukkah. Don't commit adultery, because you never know what could happen in the court of law. Is that correct? I mean, one shouldn't do it anyway, but
that's correct. I'll tell you, when I requested to adjudicate that, some people looked at me like, what are you thinking about? I said, what I'm thinking about that you never know. Somebody can be accused of that, and if they have to be judged by Sharia law, that could mean the death penalty.
Wow, the death penalty exists in the Emirates for adultery? Is that the case?
That's what Sharia law dictates. Now, I know the UAE has also its own secular law. I'm just not familiar yet as to what would be applicable in this case. So I wanted to make sure that a Jew, if God forbid, does commit that, then they will be judged by halakha and not by.
So it's no Vegas, Abu Dhabi. You have to be very careful what you do there. You can get into a lot of trouble.
Forget about adultery. That's the extreme of the extreme possibility. But as a leader, you have to look into
correct,
and make sure that your community is protected. But what about drinking alcohol in the street?
So what is the law there? I mean, Muslims don't usually drink alcohol. What happens if a Jew is drinking alcohol or making kiddush or Purim and you're celebrating in the streets?
For religious ceremonies, that's of course permissible. A Jew can buy alcohol in a special stores. Bars are open with alcohol. That's not a problem. What they don't want people to drink in the street and get drunk. So it disturbs the public peace, so to speak, and also the tradition is disrespect to the tradition of the country. Also, they do require, even though tourists are in hotels and at the beaches, they wear whatever beach wear they wear. That's permissible, and it's allowed, and it's not. However, they prefer when a person leaves the beach to be dressed more modestly.
I see.
Or not in a very provocative.
So there's something very interesting here. I mean, would you say that to be an observant religious Jew is easier in a place like Abu Dhabi or the Emirates than it is in Western secular society, where no one's keeping any form of religious law?
Absolutely. It's easier, it's more acceptable, it's understandable, and it's welcome. And I can tell you that's one of the reasons also why I do feel kind of at home, so to speak, because as modern as Lebanon was, it reminds me the way it was Lebanon here as it was then. Because people had the freedom to wear whatever they were, but there's always kind of, recommendation to be much more tsanua in the dress and much more proper in behavior.
Wow. Really, really interesting. Now, I want to throw out a few more questions before we open up the floor here. You've met a number of presidents and prime ministers, right? Can you tell us who if you had to pick one figure, one character that you really have, connected with and really enjoy their company, who would be at the top of your list?
Oh, I enjoyed their company. I have to tell you, the Crown Prince here was a very, very enjoyable conversation and time that we spent. He is very down to earth, very, very eager to learn about Judaism, about the Torah, about our halacha. He's very impressed with the Jewish people. And so it was it was a meaningful, sincere, honest discussion that I had with him. And indeed, definitely, I enjoyed this company very much.
And at a moment like that, you don't get so much time with the Crown Prince. You sort of want to give over an important message on behalf of the Jewish people, Medinat Yisrael. What type of message do you insert in a conversation like that? I'm curious.
So I did. I had the Torah scroll with me when we met, and I showed it to him, and he was very, very impressed. And I explained to him that this Torah, the content of it, has been for 3,400 years intact. Nothing has changed. Not a word, not a letter has changed. I said, Jewish communities from Russia and Jewish communities from Yemen, that for over 2,500 years, they had no connection whatsoever. When you look at their Sifrei Torah, pretty much the same, word by word. No word is extra, no letter is less. And that is, I told him, what really kept the Jewish people alive and determined. And that's what kept us united and together. So that impressed him terribly. He was really, really impressed. Wow. He says, because when you're talking about a nation that for over 2,000 years, they were in exile, persecution, inquisitions, expulsions, Holocausts, pogroms, throughout those 2,000 years, yet they survived, united, and they made it, and they went back to their own land. So to him, that was incredibly impressive.
Wow. So if I understand correctly, it sounds like the decision of the UAE to make peace with Israel, it's not just a strategic military decision based on having a united enemy in Iran. It sounds like there's much more here. There's curiosity, there's interest, right? Would you say that's the case?
There's definitely much more. This relationship didn't develop 3 months ago or a year ago. We're talking about several years in the making. Several years in the making. There is not just strategic interest, but there is cultural interests. There is an appreciation and understanding of the Jewish people as a very, very special people. I have seen it, I have heard it, and I've been told by Emiratis how impressed, how interested they want to learn more about Jewish tradition, Jewish culture, even Jewish food, Jewish music. And so this is different than a peace with Egypt. This is different than a peace with Jordan. I'm not a politician, so I cannot tell you things. But from what I see, from what I know, my own humble analysis, you're talking about a peace between people and not a peace between governments.
Wow.
The peace between Egypt and Israel and Jordan, it's a peace between government. I mean, even yesterday, I don't know if you saw a Egyptian singer.
Yes, was singing with
Dubai, was hugging Omar. He was hugging Adam.
Omer Adam. Yeah,
Omer Adam here in Dubai, and they want to punish him. I mean, this is after 40 years of a peace.
Yeah,
one of a peace is this when a citizen cannot be friendly with a Jew, with an Israeli. So you're not going to see that here. Here it's actually encouraged to learn about the Jews, to understand them, to learn their culture, to learn their language, to learn their traditions. So it's a completely different feeling. That's what I say. I call it peace between people.
Wow, interesting. And can you wear a kippah on the street? Can you walk around wearing your tzitzit and kippah on the street, or you have to sort of dress?
Absolutely.
Wow.
This kippah has never left my head
Wow.
since, never leave my head in New York. Although in New York, in some areas, sometimes nowadays, you have to be careful. You have to look back who's behind you. Excuse me, with the kippah. But no, I have not had any problem at all. In fact, in my conversation with government official, I asked them if I need a security detail, protect me, to work with me, They said, why do you feel, are you feeling scared or something? I said, no, truthfully, I'm not. They said, look, if you want, we will put you. It's not a problem. But
Wow.
I don't think you need it. We are already protecting you. You're not aware of it.
Wow. That's good to hear.
They have an excellent security apparatus. All cyber cameras, everything. So that they know you're, yes.
Wow, amazing. And so let's just talk for a second about the geopolitical situation, and then we'll open up the floor. How much, I'm curious to the people who are living there, what are their feelings about the Iranians and their nuclear ambitions? Do they see Iran as an enemy the same way that Israel does? Do they feel threatened by them? What's their view on that situation?
I'll tell you, they do a lot of business with Iran. From what I know, they still do business with Iran. There are a lot of Iranians here. Having said that, they still are concerned about the hegemony of Iran and the ambitions of Iran. They are concerned about it. And of course, I would assume, like as I said, I'm not a politician, so I cannot tell you, although many people think I am, but I'm not. But they're concerned about it, and they have to worry about it, because Iran actually, it's the closest country just across the UAE is the closest country from the Arabian Peninsula to Iran. And so they're concerned, of course they're concerned, and they're very cautious about it. And I imagine, they share certain concerns like Israel shares.
And final question, do you see this peace agreement between these two people being a game changer in terms of bringing about, peace between Israel and the Palestinians? Do you see this, where do you see that going, right now?
It definitely, or it is already a game changer. You have Bahrain that followed suit, you have Sudan that followed suit, and you're going to have a few more countries coming up that I know. How long it would take? Some sooner than later, I think. So it has been a game changer, and it will continue to be a game changer. And eventually, I think the peace between Palestinian Arabs and Israel will take place, but that is no longer the main piece. That's no longer going to be a stumbling block for other Arab countries to make peace with Israel. The narrative has changed, has absolutely changed. And I have to say that that thanks to President Trump, we have to give credit where credit is due. That process has sped significantly with a lot of encouragement. And I think we have to thank that. Yes.
Nachon, absolutely, 100%. I mean, it'd be interesting to see if Saudi Arabia jumps on board. That would be something exciting. But time will tell. Nachon.
The question of Saudi Arabia is not if, but when. And that was already pronounced by the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS. He said very clearly, the peace with Israel is not if, but when.
Have you met MBS yet?
Once in the United States, not here yet.
Okay. So please God, you'll meet him soon, and you'll give him your thoughts about this issue and help to further the process. So I want to open up the floor now to so let's write in the questions to chat. Actually, you know what? You could speak up. Just put up your hand, and if you have a question, well, okay. Rashi, why don't you start? Question, Rashi.
Hi, Rabbi. How you doing? This is Richie.
Hi, Rashi. How are you? How are you doing?
Richie Rosenzweig from Bellhopper. How's everything?
Yes, of course.
The question I have is this: you mentioned that you're now exposed to a lot of different, people. It's a big international place in UAE. But do you ever meet anybody from Beirut? And how, Lebanon has had a very, very bad relationship with Israel with the past, I don't know how many, ever since our founding of the state. So if you have run into people from your hometown in Beirut, how do they relate? And is there a positive? Is it a negative? Are they receptive?
Right. So if you look, if you follow Facebook and see many of the Lebanese, many of them are very open to make peace with Israel. As long as these Lebanese are usually very secular, either secular Christians or secular Muslims, they're very open to make peace with Israel. They want peace with Israel. They want their country to go back what it used to be in the 60s and 70s, a bastion of democracy, freedom, and Western culture. Before Arafat came and destroyed it, and before Hezbollah came, and before the civil war, they wanted to go back to that. And I don't know if you saw the reaction of after the two explosions that took place in the port of Lebanon in August. There was a huge outcry by the mainstream Lebanese population of wanting that freedom and liberty and also peace with Israel. The only thing that it's stopping, and look, there was a time in which Lebanon had great relationship with Israel, of course, in a clandestine way between the Christian Maronite leadership and Israel. They had
that was already in the 80s. That was a while
Yes,
ago.
exactly. That was already back in the 80s. So the only thing that's stopping peace with Lebanon is really Hezbollah. It used to be Syria. Used to be Syria when Syria controlled Lebanon. But Syria now barely can control its own territory. Mm-hmm. So it is Hezbollah that is going to prevent that. So if there is a way, and I think there will be a way eventually that Hezbollah will be neutralized, and then peace with Lebanon will take place. In fact, the brother of the prime minister of Lebanon, Hariri, said it very clearly. He said, "We have no negative reasons not to have peace with Israel. We just have to work out certain things, and we have no." In the essence, he says, peace with Israel is not something that we will not pursue.
Yeah, fair. Very nice. Next question. Anybody else have a question they'd like to ask? And you could put your hand up, or you could write into the chat. Okay. Yes, Mrs. S. Chava.
Are they open to doing business with Jewish businessmen?
The UAE?
Yes.
If I tell you that in the last almost 3 weeks, over 2,000 Israeli businessmen descended upon this country finding business, I would not be lying to you. And the next few weeks, we're going to have over 50,000 Israelis coming here. Some of them, they don't know what's going to hit them.
They don't know what's coming.
They don't know. So,
the question is, are the Israelis going to behave are they going to behave in the Emirates? We spoke about some of the rules and the regulations. I was once in Thailand, and there was a sign up in Thailand that no Israelis allowed. It was in Hebrew, and only Israelis could read it. No Israelis allowed. Are the Israelis going to behave when they get to Abu Dhabi? The question remains, Rabbi, you're going to have to keep everybody in line. So
yes, but I'll tell you, look, the Calcalist Bank Leumi conference took place this past Tuesday and Wednesday here in Dubai.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be a lot of business. There have been business already between Israel and the UAE for the last several years. All their cybersecurity technology, it's all Israeli technology. Before it used to be through a third country. Now it's direct. There's going to be a lot of business between Israel and the UAE.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Next question. Anybody else? Good question. Next question. Anybody raise a hand, or you could type into the chat if you like.
So let me say just for a second, there are really 7 emirates. That's what's called the United Arab Emirates. There are 7 emirates. Abu Dhabi is the head emirate, so to speak, and it's the capital of the United Arab Emirates. That's where the royal family lives and the crown prince lives, and that's where the seat of government is. Dubai is another emirate. Sharjah is another emirate. Jumeirah is another one, and a few others that are not. And Ras Al Khaimah is another one, not very well known. Dubai is the business center of the United Arab Emirates, so to speak. If you could compare it to the United States, Abu Dhabi is Washington, Dubai is New York, or was New York. So that's what it is. So but there, of course, there's also business with Abu Dhabi, but for business and things like that, Dubai is the same.
And what is the COVID situation right now in Abu Dhabi?
The COVID situation is very well controlled. There is still social distancing rules, and there is still mask use in public. But to enter the country, you need to have a negative COVID test 2-3 days before you come in. So practically all those that are coming in are, are negative. So the increase is very, very minimal on a daily basis. They don't announce it, which I agree with that. I think to announce it, you create panic and unnecessary. They follow the rules. The population here is very lawful, very lawful. Population.
Wow. Okay. Good to hear.
Can I ask a question?
Sure,
yes,
Adele, go for it.
Are there how many Jewish children are there in this small community now, and what's going to happen when more families come there? Will there be enough kids to have a Jewish a school, a kindergarten, or what?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to start with what we call the Talmud Torah, which means afternoon school for some of these kids. And eventually we will open an early childhood program and grow it into an elementary school. Yes, we have to create all that infrastructure and build it because we do expect the community to grow significantly.
Wow.
Presently, most of the Jews live in Dubai, few of them in Abu Dhabi, even less in some other of the Emirates. It is believed that there might be 800 Jews or 1,000 Jews that live here. Only 250 to 300 maximum have declared themselves to be Jewish before. And now more of them are coming out of the shadow. But they had kept it quiet because, either for business or professional reason, whatever reason, they preferred not to announce it. But now, as the peace treaty is taking place, so more of them are coming out.
And kosher food in the Nehruv, are those available as well?
Kosher food, now we have 2 caterers that have kosher food. One of them is Elie's Kitchen, which is mostly, if not Ashkenazi, but more gourmet type of food. And the other one is gourmet kosher, which is mostly actually Middle Eastern and Moroccan food.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
So there is couscous and there's all of that.
Okay, and Daniel has a live question. I'm just going to unmute you 1 second. Okay, you have to, Daniel, press on the space bar to ask your question. Okay. There you go.
Thank you. What about families who live there who keep kosher? How do they go about obtaining food that is kosher? Like yourself, Rabbi.
Right. So I'm being fed by the caterers for now. They are, believe it or not, they are products on the shelf of supermarket that have OU or the OK that are imported. And now I'm sure you have seen a video that has been circulating in social media of Israeli products already in supermarkets in Dubai that are kosher.
Does that include meat and chicken?
Well, chicken, there is now chicken being slaughtered here, Shivtei here in Dubai. Meats for now is being imported, either mostly from Israel and the United States, but eventually we're going to have a local shechita that will provide meat and chicken also.
And is the Chabad under your supervision as well? Is there a Chabad in Abu Dhabi?
There is a Chabad house. We are working on in creating one united community, which they will be part of under our umbrella. That's what we are working on that.
Wow, amazing. Okay, so we're going to bring this discussion to a conclusion. And Rabbi, just a final question. Can you tell us what is the message, what derasha did you give to your community the first time that you spoke to them on Shabbat morning? What was the message? And give us a summary of that message.
Well, it was this past Shabbat that I think it's. I said, look, we all know that in Parashat that we just read, Parashat Vayetze, as Yaakov left the house of his parents on his way to Haran, and he stopped Vayifga b'makom. He stopped on what our Chachamim say was the Temple Mount, and he had such a lofty dream.
Sharif, right?
Yeah, exactly. Here I have not heard them call it that way because they call it the Temple Mount. So he had very lofty dream of Sulam Mutzav Arsa Verosho Magia Hashamayma. Beautiful lofty dream with angels and a ladder, though firm on ground, but its head is in Shamayim. And yet at the end of the parasha, we see that Yaakov had a different type of a dream. This time, a dream of how many speckled or spotted sheep he's going to have, which it will enrich him. And it will give him, so to speak, a good pension plan for the future, right? And so if we compare the two dreams, the second dream seemed to be very materialistic. There's nothing lofty about it. No more angels, no more shamayim, nothing like that. And as we read, the pasuk says, the malach says to Yaakov, "Ra'iti et asher Lavan oseh lach." I have seen what Lavan is doing to you. And a beautiful commentary was said is that I've seen that Lavan has influenced you to now think materialistically and not spiritually as you were before you came. When you came here, you had such a beautiful dream, angelics and things like angels and things like that. And now you're dreaming about how much money you're going to have, how much possessions you're going to have. It's time for you to leave Yaakov. You have to leave this place back to your parents' household. Maybe you could, your spirituality will be uplifted again and again. So I said, look, coming to the United Arab Emirates, a beautiful country, very modern country. There's a lot of wealth and a lot of material wealth and life enjoyment and everything. I said, as a community, as a nascent community, as Jews, we should not forget our spiritual being, who we are and what we are, and our Torah and mitzvot and ma'asim tovim that we ought to do. And we should not be swept by the wealth and the pleasures of this place. But we should enjoy them properly and do the best we can. But at the same time, we should not forget that that we are spiritual beings and we have to nurture that spirituality in this place.
Wow, beautiful message, Rabbi Abadie. I want to give you a bracha. The bracha that I want to give you on behalf of our community here, that number one, that you should continue to represent Am Yisrael, Medinat Yisrael, with dignity and honor, and represent Dat HaEmet, the entire Muslim world, number one. Number two, that you should succeed at keeping all the Israelis in line who come to Abu Dhabi, to keep them and to connect them, that maybe when they take a little bit of break from Eretz Yisrael and they come to you, you'll push them back to us and say, hey, look how special it is to be in Israel. Look what you have over there. And so we wish you much bracha and hatzlacha and everything that you do representing Am Yisrael in this new Jewish location. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we will meet back here in Yerushalayim, Kodesh, very soon. Maybe we'll do a road trip. Maybe we'll do a community road trip through Jordan, Saudi Arabia to come meet you, and then come back and come visit us here. So I want to thank everyone for coming onto the call. Rabbi, thank you so much. It was great to see you. Hatzlacha Rabbi, regards to your entire family, and shetelech mechayil el chayil.
Toda Rabba, thank you very much. And when you come here, we'll take you also to Bahrain, when there is also a Jewish community there who is inaugurating their remodeled synagogue around Purim time.
Wow, wow, beautiful.
That's
Beautiful.
also very nicely.
Okay, looking forward to these new changes in the Jewish world. Okay, Erev Tov l'kulam. Thank you all for participating, and Shalom l'kulam. Erev Tov. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Post this, the video. We'll post the video for everybody to listen.
Thank you.
Okay, call to.
شكرا.